Hi there, welcome to Kneppyinvests. In this video, I'm going to do a response to a comment I got in one of my videos that I did the other day. That video was when to sell, taking profit sell strategy. When it comes to comments, I do encourage, if you have anything to say about one of my videos, anything I say, do, my investing strategy, style, that sort of thing, I do encourage you to leave a comment because I do get inspiration, ideas, and even on occasion I do learn from any comments that I do see. Now, in particular, the most valued comments I think of are any sort of criticism that I do get. Now, criticism or critical comments can be broken down into two lots. There's destructive criticism or constructive criticisms. If I do get destructive criticisms, I set them aside. I ignore them because they're of no use at all. I can't learn from them. But when it comes to constructive criticisms, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And I need to acknowledge Joshua B for leaving this comment, because I think it does take a bit of bravery to leave a comment that is critical. So I just want to acknowledge Joshua B, because even though you could consider this comment as being critical, in a way I think of as being advice. And if you view these sort of criticism as advice, that's when you can draw so much more out of them and learn from them. And then that's the main thing about getting advice or constructive criticism, is the ability to learn from them and then grow as an investor or as a human being. So I just really want to acknowledge Joshua B for leaving this comment. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the comment and break it down into two sections, because the first part of his comment I actually did find ridiculous and wasn't really applicable to this video. And I'm going to talk about why it's not applicable. But the second part of his comment is where I really want to focus on, because that's what I've learned the most from his comment. So this is a comment that was left in that video by Joshua B. And the first part of the comment, which did slightly offend me, was why A2 milk was not included in this. I have no idea. And I'm going to be talking about why that part of the question was ridiculous and was not applicable at all to this selling strategy in the next few slides. But the second part of the question or the comment was really valid, and I actually have drawn some inspiration from that, and I'll show you how that inspiration has transpired in the second part of this video. So it's easy to talk about positive outcomes for a select number of stocks we have traded, but why not talk about the bad calls and the lessons learned for a balanced perspective as to when to sell? And it is valid, because the way we learn and grow as investors or even as human beings is to make mistakes and learn from them. Now, it's okay to make mistakes, but the most important thing is to learn from them. And that's how I'm growing as an investor. I've made a lot of mistakes, particularly with A2 milk. And that's, even though I've gained a fair bit from that, knowing when to sell with A2 milk was probably one of my biggest mistakes so far as an investor. So I'm going to talk about one occasion where this trading strategy didn't quite work, and I think what sort of lessons I did learn from when I did not employ this trading strategy when I could have or should have. So this is my response to the first part of this comment. Why A2 milk was not included in this, I have no idea. Well, if he did actually watch the video and understood it, he should have sort of had an idea why A2 milk was not applicable. But for all intents and purposes of this video, I'm going to show you why A2 milk was not applicable, and it all comes back to when I use this strategy. So I even mentioned in the video, and I thought I was fairly clear on those sort of circumstances where I use this selling strategy. So I use it on high-risk volatile plays, and those are usually non-profitable, small cap companies with a low share price when their stock has risen 100% in a very short period of time, or an exponential growth in share price. So is that applicable to A2 milk? Well, let's have a look. They're non-profitable. Well, are they non-profitable? Well, in the last financial year, they made $360 million in profit. So they are not non-profitable. Are they a small cap? Well, last time I looked, their market cap at the share price of about $8 was still $6 billion. That is not small cap, big cross. low share price. So in the video the other day, I mentioned I only use this strategy when the share price is like 1, 2, 5, 10 cents, maybe 20 cents. Last time I looked at A2 Milk share price was $8. That's significantly higher than the share price I usually use in this strategy. So that's another big cross. Share price rise. So I mentioned I use this strategy when the stock share price has risen over 100%. Well, last time I looked, I bought A2 Milk when the share price was $2. Now it's $8, so that's a 400% rise. So that actually does get a tick, but only use this strategy when you've seen a rapid increase in a very short period of time of the share price. So typically I'm looking for an exponential rise in the share price. So to see if A2 Milk ever went through this exponential rise in share price, we're going to have to look at the chart. Now with A2 Milk, I'm going to go back to 2017 because that's when we saw the share price of A2 Milk rise from $2 all the way up to nearly $8. And what I'm looking for here is any sort of exponential rise in share price. So when I talk about an exponential rise in share price, I'm talking about the share price rising, say 100% in a few days on no news. And typically when I see that exponential rise in share price, say 100% in a few days, usually ends in tears because it cannot be maintained, that sort of share price rise. But what I see here is a very orderly rise in share price, almost linear rise in share price. It's definitely not exponential, and this is the sort of chart you want to see when you're holding a company, this very orderly, good uptrend developing. You don't want to see the share price rise exponentially. And the two examples I showed in that previous video, we did see that exponential rise in the share price. In fact, one of those companies rose almost 1,000% in about 6 trading days, and that can never be healthy. Now to the other part of the question that is valid. It's easy to talk about positive outcomes for a select number of stocks we have traded, but why not talk about the bad calls and the lessons learned for a balanced perspective as to when to sell? So when I first read that, I was a little bit more annoyed by the first part, but as I became a little bit less and less annoyed, I realized the second part of that comment was really valid, and I did draw some inspiration from that. So I'm going to show you how that inspiration transpired right now. So the second part of the comment really reminded me of a very important part of life, and this applies to every facet of living. Making mistakes is how we learn, and I go back through my whole investing life, and every single mistake has led me to become a better investor. So what sort of mistakes have I done when I've used or could have used this strategy in the past? So in my previous video, I did show you 2 times I've used this strategy successfully in the past. And so now I'm going to show you when I could have used this strategy and I didn't. And the reason I didn't use this strategy is simply because this was not part of my sell strategy for the company, but I should have adapted, I should have adjusted my sell strategy when it came to this company. So the company I'm talking about is Hammer Metals. Now I bought Hammer Metals at 7.5 cents. The day after, their share price ran really hard. Actually, in fact, it increased over 100% in one day on the back of some very healthy news. But that's not a bad thing. That's the sort of thing you want to see, particularly when the volume is really high. So I bought in at 7.5 cents, and I always believe you should have a sell strategy as soon as you take a position in a company. So my sell strategy when it came to Hammer Metals was to look out or watch out for a technical sell signal. So the main thing I was concerned about is the share price falling below my buy price from then on in. So I bought at 7.5 cents, and as the share price did rise above 8 cents and then 9 cents, I wasn't that concerned. I was wanting to be a bit patient with this holding just to see what happened in the future. But then in later period of February, we did see an exponential rise in the share price of Hammer Metals. In fact, the share price went from just above 8 cents to a high of 15.5 cents in about 5 or 6 trading days. And that is the exact definition of an exponential rise in the share price. And that is one of the criteria I use for my profit-taking sell strategy. So even though Hammer Metals wasn't a part of this strategy, I should have been able to adapt and adjust my sell strategies when I saw this exponential rise in share price. And I did see it. In fact, I remember the day it got to 15.5 cents, and I was thinking maybe I should adjust my sell strategy when it came to hammer metals, and I decided not to. I decided to be less adaptable, less willing to change my sell strategy, and I should have used it, and that is the big mistake I made with hammer metals. So I did not sell when I could have at 15 cents. I was actually even thinking of doing it at that point, and I should have adjusted. So that was one of the lessons I've learned from this example. There was another lesson I learned from this example is when I do get this profit-taking sell strategy, the way I do it was I don't sell the whole holding. I sell out half, or maybe even more than a half. And I'm thinking maybe I should sell out the complete holdings, because every single time I've seen this exponential rise in share price for a non-profitable small cap company, I've always seen the share price retreat. And that's making me think I should sell out the complete holdings when I get this profit-taking sell strategy signal. So there are two main lessons I've taken away from hammer metals. And the first really important one was the ability to adapt and adjust my sell strategy. So if I do have a particular sell strategy for a holding, I can or should be able to change my strategy if something does change. And with hammer metals, when I saw that exponential rise in share price, that should have been the trigger for me to change my strategy and sell out a portion at 15 cents. But the other thing I've been really thinking about recently is maybe I should change or slightly adjust my profit-taking strategy. So instead of selling out a portion of the holding, maybe sell out the complete holdings, because every single time I've employed this strategy, the share price has fallen. So maybe I can take advantage of that knowledge and sell out the complete holding and potentially buy in at a much lower price if I still like the company and there is still a buy signal there when it comes to the technicals. Now, before I finish this video, I do have to applaud Joshua B, because even though I was initially slightly annoyed by the first part of his comment, as I read the second part and as time has gone by, I've come to appreciate his comment more and more. And I think it does take a bit of bravery to leave that sort of critical comment in that comment section of a video. But I do take a lot out of those sort of comments. So if you are going to be critical, make sure they are very constructive sort of criticism, not a very destructive sort of criticisms. And Joshua's B comment was very constructive in my opinion. So I do highly recommend and encourage that if you do have some sort of criticism just like that about my investing strategy, style, how I do my videos, whether I talk too quick, talk too slow, talk too loud, talk too soft, I do highly recommend any sort of feedback, criticism, that sort of thing. So again, Joshua B, thank you for your comment. In saying all that, I'm not a financial advisor, so if you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's all for this video. Have a good day. See ya.